Great. I believe we are live. Welcome, everybody. My name's Dan Knechtges. I am the artistic director of the wonderful Theater Under the Stars. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome, everybody. My name's
and what a great group we have with us. We right now are presenting Come From Away at the Hobby Center. We're going into our second week of this wonderful, wonderful show. And joining us, we have three of our cast members from this production. And we have three of the real people this story is based on. Come From Away is a Tony Award-winning musical with book, music, and lyrics by Tony-nominated Irene Sankoff and David Hine. Set in the week following the September 11th attacks, Come From Away tells the true story of what transpired when 38 planes were ordered to land unexpectedly at Gander International Airport in the province of Newfoundland, Canada. Sounds unlikely for a musical, right? Characters in the musical are based on real Gander residents, as well as some of the 7,000 stranded travelers they housed and fed. And I also want to add the pets and animals that were also on those planes. We are fortunate to have three of those travelers. When I call your name, can you give a little wave and say hi? We have the real Diane and Nick Marson.
Hey, hi.
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 And we have the real Beverley Bass who flew the plane. Yeah, that landed in Newfoundland. Hi, Beverley.
Hey.
Also here with us today is their onstage counterparts, Christine Toy Johnson, who plays Diane and others. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Jenny Ashman, who is Diane and others. And standby.
And Bev and others, all of them.
And Bevan and all the others. Oh my God, we have to talk about standbys.
It's just too many voices in my head. I'll explain it all.
You didn't realize you're playing Sybil.
No, but that's what our wig lady Patty says every time I sit down. We're like, what wig are we wearing today, Sybil? So.
And Kylie Reidy, who plays Nick and others. Did I say that right?
You didn't, Dan, but I'll correct you.
Please.
And the great thing is that you got them both wrong. It's Kilty Reidy. Don't worry, it happens all the time. If you have a name like Kilty Reidy, you got to roll with it. So,
well, yeah. If you've seen my last name, I've gotten all sorts of things.
That's right.
Thank you. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Let's get started. We have so many questions for you. We could go all night if we could, but we promise to keep it short. But for our audience, if at any point you have questions for our panel, please feel free to submit a question through our chat feature so we can be sure to answer all your questions. And I will try and get to those afterwards too. And maybe we can get a few more answers to your questions. The first thing that I have to know, and maybe I'll go to Nick and Diane first, and then maybe Beverley, is did you think it was completely nuts when people came and said to you, we want to make a musical of your story about the time that you were stranded in Gander, Newfoundland?
Yeah, absolutely. We met them at the 10th anniversary on 2011. And this young couple came up to us and said that they were going to make a musical or a play about 9/11. And I thought, well, good luck with that one.
Yeah, we really wanted this story to be shared because those people deserve to have this spotlight. If not that they want a spotlight, but we wanted this story to be shared of how they took us in, really, and their kindness.
The funniest response I ever heard was from Claude, the mayor. He said, they seem like a nice couple, but I thought they'd be on welfare in 18 months.
That's wonderful. Beverley, did you think everyone was nuts when they said they're taking your story and making it into a musical?
Well, actually, when I did the interview on the 10th anniversary, like Nick and Diane, I didn't even know what playwrights were. I mean, I had no idea what they were doing. I didn't have a clue. And after the interview that lasted about 4 hours, we just flew back to Texas, and I never thought about it again. And it was actually Nick who texted me and said, you might want to pay attention to this because your role is pretty prominent in the show. And I had no idea what he meant. And it really wasn't until we went to opening night La Jolla in 2015,
Yeah.
4 years later, that we saw the show. I did not know a single thing about the show the first time we saw it.
Wow. So La Jolla was the first time
Right.
that you saw a full production.
Yes.
It's actually, we were at the NAMP festival in October of 13, and we saw the preview 3 times while we were there. And we were amazed that the story was us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when I sent Bev a text saying, you need to see this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I still didn't know what he was talking about.
So I read a very, very early draft of it before NAMT. I saw the NAMT, and then I didn't see La Jolla. I saw it in Seattle, which I believe was after La Jolla.
It was, yes.
And, and for our listeners, what I hope to impart to them is that journey is so long for a new musical. And as I transition from our real characters to our actors, who I am sure have worked on quite a few new musicals, can you talk about that journey, and maybe not necessarily Come From Away, but Christine, I know that you're a legend in this industry, and you're so beloved by so many people. How can you explain what amount of work that is to get
Oh my goodness.
nothing to
Yes.
what they're going to see on stage here?
Well, first of all, that's very, very kind of you. Thank you.
But it's true. It's true.
I do happen to also be a playwright, librettist, and lyricist. So I'm in the middle of writing a couple of new musicals myself. So actually the journey that David and Irene took with Come From Away was quite short. I think from 3 years from 2011 for the interviews to be announced in 2013, and then on Broadway by 2015 was amazing. But so, yeah, I mean, it's different for every show. And you can go through readings forever and workshops and development until you finally get the right alchemy of people together, the team that you're putting together, from the writers and the director and the choreographer and the scenic and the sound and the actors and the costumes and everything, and putting it all together. It is quite a magical experience when it's good. I'll say that.
And Kilty, when you were working on this show or this production of Come From Away, had you experienced it before? And in this production, was there something? What was the newness for you in creating it?
Well, I didn't come in. I mean, I had seen the show on Broadway, and I came in the second year of the tour, so the bulk of sort of creating had been finished, right? But the one thing that we are really encouraged as standbys to do is to sort of create in our own image. And it sounds very biblical. I didn't mean it that way, but to be ourselves, to bring ourselves to these characters. And I think by being encouraged to do that, we get to create something that is different, that adds to the whole of what's already been created. And so I think there's creation that's happening all the time in sort of micro doses, which makes it alive, I think, for the people playing all the time, and just keeps the point of view of the storytelling really bright.
Yeah. And what's the Sunday in the Park line? If it comes from you, then it will be new, which is so true. And Jenny, the one question I kind of want to dovetail into is that a lot of our listeners don't understand what a standby really does, and how many of these real people are in your head, and you have to memorize all of these different blocking tracks and everything. I don't know how you do it.
Honestly, I don't either. I just trust that it's all in there. You kind of have to go in. I remember the first time I went on, it was for Beverley, and I was standing in the wings. And the show, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's very fast. We're all on stage most of the show. It's about 100 minutes, and we're rarely off stage. And I remember being in the wings and thinking, I don't really leave the stage for 45 minutes. I can't check my notes. I think it's all there. And my mantra became, you know this, you know this, you know this. Every time I go out in the wings, I give myself a little like, you know this. So standby, there are swings, standbys, and understudies. So standbys cover principal tracks. Swings cover ensemble tracks. But what we do is, because everyone in the show is a principal, we all cover principal tracks. So each time we go on, it's a different, fully formed character and arc and accents. Also, that's the other fun thing you get to keep in your head is if you're doing Newfoundland, if you're doing British, if you're doing Texas, if you're doing, I mean, it's a wild number of accents that we're all also memorizing. But each of the standbys covers 5 different tracks. So that includes all the harmonies, all of the lines, all of the blocking. Our show consists of about 14 chairs that all look different and all have different numbers. And I remember the first time I watched the show from high up at the Schoenfeld in New York, I watched the first plane transition, where in the dark, this magic happens where everyone scatters, grabs a chair, the lights come up, and they're suddenly in a 2-row plane. And I thought, oh no, I have to know 5 versions of that. You know, running in the dark with a chair, just hoping you're not going to knock someone out. So it is wild, it is exhilarating, and it is exhausting.
Wow, that's incredible. And I bet the turntable is also its own
Oh, yes.
beast that you have to deal with on
Yes.
stage.
There, if you look overhead, you can see all the spikes. It sort of looks like a confetti cannon went off on our stage. Where you can see all the spikes with the different colors. And when the turntable moves, all of those spikes move. So they're in different places throughout the whole show. And that's another fun thing you get to try to keep up with and remember.
And Jenny and Kilty, do you have a favorite track of all of the ones that you cover?
Well, I say because my 2 primaries are Diane and Bev, so I love them the most.
And my primaries are Claude and Nick. So by primaries, we're hired to cover 2 people who, when they're out, 2 characters, when those characters are out, we're on. But because of the way it works, if I'm on for the character of Nick and Claude goes out, one of the other gentlemen standby has to be able to cover that. So then I also know Bob, Oz, and Kevin T.
Wow.
So, and Jenny and I are both proud members of the 4 performance clubs. So we've gone on for 4 of our 5.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
it's hard. It's like Dan, you asked that. It's like you go in. I have to say, I went in and when I auditioned, I was like, I'm a Nick. That's what I'm a Nick. And then you go in and I was taught Claude first. And then then you go, oh, I really like him. I think I'm a Claude, right? And then you do Nick, and then you're like, oh, I love that. And then you do Oz, and you're like, Oz is great. And it's just now you ask like, which baby do you give up? You know, and it's as they get further along, you're like, well, maybe I'm not as right for those, but yeah.
And Christine, Kilty, and Jenny, can you talk about any of the challenges? And I'm hopeful it's funny, but as we know, COVID isn't funny, but are there any stories and challenges that the tour faced because of COVID?
Well, sure. I actually have been with the tour since the very beginning, since 2018. So I've been lucky enough to do the show over 750 times, which is amazing, amazing gift. And so when we came back, when we relaunched, we all came out of this 1.5-year time period thinking, how is it going to work? how will we be able to put all the safety protocols in place? I've been lucky enough to work on a fair amount of television in the interim. So those rules are very, very rigid, and wondered how many of them would transfer. And so we travel with 2 health and safety managers who their job is to make sure we're safe, and we are tested all the time, and we wear masks backstage, and we're just we're responsible for ourselves, of course, but to take care of each other. And so we were doing really well in the first couple of months, because we were in very warm states, so we could eat outside. You know, we had no cases until, and then we said to each other, what's going to happen when we have to go inside and we hit colder weather? And that was Toledo in January, and that's exactly when we started running into problems. And opening night in Minneapolis, I believe 8 of the 12 of us who usually do the show every night were out, and all of our wonderful standbys were on, plus one from New York that they had flown in, who was actually an emergency standby in New York, and we borrowed her. And then, you know, we ended up borrowing many people to, sorry, it's very noisy outside in Houston, if you can hear that right now downtown. We ended up borrowing James Call from the Toronto company, and David Shannon, who had been in the UK company, and Happy McPartland, who's a standby on Broadway currently, and Holly and
Gino.
Sorry?
And Gino from the original.
And Gino
company.
Carr from the
Gino,
original
yeah.
company. And so people were just incredible. I mean, I always have to say this, I never want anyone to be sick. I never want anyone to be sick. And so all of this is said with the knowledge that our friends and colleagues were ill, but not in such a place that we had to worry horribly for them. You know, they were on the mend. And we all rallied together, as we do. The come from way spirit is to rally together and lift each other up and tell the story. And I think that that's what's so unique about this company, well, the global family of Come From Away, and this story is that there was never a question that we would just be there for each other. And with this commitment to telling the story and telling it well.
And I wonder too, going back now to Beverley and Nick and Diane, Beverley, we don't often hear like these feel-good stories about the tragedy of 9/11. And I have to admit, when people said, oh, the 9/11 musical is coming in, everyone's like, this is the worst idea ever. And then you see it and it is so uplifting, and I want to go back over and over again to feel that warmth. What was it like living in that moment? Was it tragic, scary, thrilling? I don't know what adjective to put on that, but what was that like in Newfoundland, those 6 days, 5 days?
We were there actually 5 days. And my situation was a little bit different because, back then we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have pagers. So I rarely left the Comfort Inn because I never knew when American was going to call and say, get dressed in your blue suits and go to the airport. And I didn't want to miss that call. So I didn't have the opportunity to mingle with the people in the town as much as some of the other passengers. But when we finally did leave after 5 days, I remember thinking, I heard from so many of my passengers what they had done, what they had seen. They bought all these souvenirs, brought them on the airplane. And so I had the opportunity to talk to them on the way to Dallas. And I remember thinking, oh, I just want the whole world to know about this story. And really, Come From Away has given the world the opportunity to learn about all the magnificent things the Ganderites did for us during those 5 days.
Yeah. And that is one of the wonderful things, is that the show, while it is about your stories, but it's really about that wonderful community
Yeah.
selfishly giving up all of those things. And Nick and Diane, what was it like then from the passenger side that week?
Actually, I think of it as a 9/12 story. It's how this town came together. All the food for the first 2 days came out of their pantries, their kitchens, a lot of the supplies. We were actually 25 miles away from Gander in a tiny town called Gambo. And it was just an experience. It was all of those things that you mentioned.
9/11 was the worst of humanity, and 9/12 was the best of humanity.
Yes.
Hmm.
And the show amplifies or
Yeah.
shows how wonderful those people in Newfoundland were, how selfless they came together to look
Right.
after us.
And that's just their way. They did not think they did any wonderful feat of whatever. This is just what they do. They share with their neighbors, with everyone.
So they fed us, they gave us somewhere to sleep, and then they started entertaining us.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And anything you needed, they were ready to do their best to get it
And
for you.
there's a line in the show on Dover Fault. Nick says, "I don't want to go." Well, I actually said those words to Diane. It wasn't actually on Dover Fault, but I actually said them, and I obviously told David and Irene because they put it in the show. But
Yeah.
it was as though we'd been placed in heaven. We've been taken out
Yeah.
of this turmoil of the rest of
Yeah,
the world.
the treadmill of life,
Yeah.
and put down in this wonderful, friendly, loving, caring
Yeah.
place.
That's right.
Wow. So it's almost as if you couldn't have picked a better place to just be put for love.
Exactly.
And,
Angels were watching over us.
Oh yeah, they were angels looking after us.
Yes.
I also want to say to our listeners, there is a huge Texas connection here to this story, especially with Beverley, but also Diane and now Nick as well. And I'm sure there are countless other connections to Texas I don't even know about.
Yes.
So the two Kevins.
The two Kevins actually lived in Austin. I'm a native Houstonian. This is my hometown.
Yeah.
And Bev and Tom, I think, were from Dallas.
Yeah.
So sometimes
Oh.
Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in Houston, we don't really talk about Dallas so much, but
I know. It's
not
little
wrong.
D.
We're
Sorry.
not
It's
going to hold
little
it
D.
against you, Beverly.
Diane, that would be big D.
We're little H, huh?
I do have to just a fan note to say the moment that really struck me, because I hadn't become an artistic director here the first 3 times I had seen the show, but now that I had seen it, it was after our shutdown. But when Beverly's character, or when she says and headed to Texas, there were audible cries around me of people just, and cheers. And
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional just talking about it, because it was really just thinking back on that day of 9/11. And I'm sure everybody has stories of that, but I was leaving for a gig, and that morning I left the Lincoln Tunnel and you came out and it was gorgeous weather. And you saw the towers, and just thinking that it's now we're recapturing the plane imagery of Beverly heading back and her passengers heading back to Texas. I thought it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Dan, I might have been I might have been one of the only 2 passengers that weren't in too much of a hurry to get back to Texas. I wanted that flight to go on for a long time.
That's great. And now I have a cheeky question, maybe, to say, Beverly, do you have a favorite actress that has played you?
Oh, I can't say that. That would be so wrong. Actually, the really nice thing is I've had the opportunity to meet all of them, and they all play the role in their own style and manner.
Yes.
And I love different things about each one. So it would be very hard to pick a favorite.
Yeah. And Nick and Diane, I have a feeling you're going to say the same thing.
Well, I'm just going to say Dan is a gentleman, does not tell.
Every one of them brings a bit of their self
Yes.
to play, and
They're-
a bit of us,
They're,
and
they're all
it's
exceptions.
more include us,
Yeah.
my
And
much younger self.
And do you, Jenny, I'm curious, do you feel the same way? Do you feel that there are parts of these real people that you've extracted, but then also woven that with some of yourself?
Absolutely. I think you have to. I think it's so unusual to play someone that you've met and interacted with, and so you want to honor them and honor their story, but also honor the show and what's been written and the way they've woven all these characters and stories together. Because some people in the show are, Diane is Diane and Bev is Bev, but there are other characters that are a combination of people that they encountered, and a combination of even names, like Janice Mosier is two different people, and they put the first name from one and the last name from the other, and they created the reporter character. So I think there is a bit of, I want to pull from them, and obviously knowing them in the story, but so much of it, I mean, as an actor in any show, in any role, you've got to pull from yourself and what your human experience brings to this show.
Yeah. And Kilty, were you in New York on 9/11?
I was. Yeah, I was in the apartment that I still live in. And I'd done a catering job the night before, didn't sleep well that evening, and I ended up on the floor of my living room. And I had an old roommate. It's when the days when you'd call a phone and the answer machine would pick up, but you could still hear it.
Yeah.
And the phone rang, and I let it go to the answering machine. It was my friend, and she just literally kept yelling, "Get up, get up, get up, get up, turn on the television." And that's what I did. And I'm on 50th Street, and I just watched the day unfold. And the thing that I remember about that day, I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't rush to the seat. I just felt a little handicapped, and I stayed in my apartment. And at one point I remember lying on my bed. I'm in Midtown. I can see the part of the sky, and I could see fighter jets flying down the island. You'd see them go and then hear them. And it was, a really sobering moment.
So what does it mean to you then to take that experience and then put it into this work of art? Do you carry those memories when you're on stage, or you're just trying to remember which track you're doing?
I mean, there is that, right? And I think that it's such it is so fast moving that there's not time to like sit and sort of wallow in this, emotion of it. We're telling a story, we're kind of brass tacks. And that's what I found beautiful about watching it, is that there was so much space left for me as an audience member to have my own feelings about it, that we're not dictating it from the stage. And so I think when we've all been through crisis or grief, a lot of time grief presents itself as very like practical, and I think there's a lot in the play that's very like practical. They're in emergency mode,
Yeah.
But of course, there are times where it out of the blue, you'll say something and it's just like a knock to the gut, and you have to like rally, pull yourself together. You're telling a play. This is your job, and you keep moving on.
And Christine, did you have any similar experiences on 9/11? Were you in town at that point?
Actually, I was not. I was working in a show in Las Vegas, and
Wow.
it was a big industrial show, which for people who don't know, it's this big pharmaceutical company had hired up 100 people to do this celebration of their company. And so I got there on Monday, the 10th of September, and then watched it on the Today Show live with everybody else, and then try to get home for the next couple of days. And we ended up, they hired a bus for us to drive 48 hours straight back to Philadelphia. That's as close as I could get, and my husband picked me up from there. But what's interesting about the experience I had there was that we connected with each other because we were going through this experience of trying to get home. But I've never seen those people ever again since then. So we had this opposite kind of experience of being there for each other in the moment, and then we dissipated. And what thing I think about a lot is how much I appreciate that in Come From Away, we're giving an additional lens through which to see the story. And so, you know, we don't ignore the terrible parts of it, but what we bring out, what David and Irene and all the team has brought out, is that the better angels of people came out, and that we're seeing that additional part of the time period. So I think that's partially why it's not as difficult to feel like we're sitting in the grief and the sorrow of it, but to sit in the part where we were inspired to be better people.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. And one last thing that I want to impart, especially on our audience, is that you guys have gone back, Nick and Diane and Beverley, to Gander for reunions. Is that right?
Yes, we've been back 9 times, I think. Now.
Yeah, we actually spent our honeymoon there too. So that's part of the 9.
Yeah, 1 year
Wow.
later.
Yeah.
Wow. And there was a performance in Gander, was there not?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
that was
In the hockey rink.
The best ever.
that was
That was the best,
outstanding.
the highlight.
I don't
can't-
think anything can top that performance.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I
Extremely
cannot imagine.
emotional.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's extremely emotional here at the Hobby Center after everything that we've been through, shut down for almost 2 years.
Oh, no.
What a pleasure it is to have your stories and these marvelous actors on our stage. It's such joy. And I know anybody who hasn't gotten tickets yet, who are not subscribers, you know how to do it. It's tuts.com. It's all up there, and you are going to be rewarded 100-fold by seeing the show. It's really, really great. And I just want to thank everybody on this call. It's really, I don't know else how to say it except that it is like church. You feel renewed in your faith,
Yes.
in your hope in the world, and in people and in community. And I thank you all for sharing that with us.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for
you.
having
It's
us.
our
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
And-
for having us.
Thank you, audience, and we will get your questions and get those answered if you have them. And thank you very much.
Thank you.